We're back here in the WCTV studios for another episode of Jacket Sports Weekly.
Jacket Sports Weekly, where you can find everything Waynesburg University sports. Tune in every week to our panel as they take a deep dive into Waynesburg sports. We cover everything from football.
Turning around is Isaac Trout. Did he get the feet down? We will wait for the mark. And they call it a touchdown.
To basketball.
Ball. Got it! We're all tied up!
To softball.
Max this one. Left field. Kiss it goodbye!
Stay up to date with all your favorite Waynesburg University sports with us at Jacket Sports Weekly.
We're opening things off with our usual two-host segment here on Jacket Sports Weekly. Myself, Logan Lepiscopo, and my good friend, Mr. Seth Adams. Sir, how have you been the past week?
Good, man. Good, man. A lot of action in baseball, softball, you name it. It's been a pretty exciting week in Jacket Sports lately.
Well, I'm glad you've been doing well. Let's talk about this softball team that's been doing pretty well. Since our last episode, the softball team, a perfect 4-0 record against two non-conference opponents.
Yeah, they swept Carlo and swept John Carroll. It seems like some of their games are either a pitching battle between, like the first game they won 2-1 against Carlo. It was really a pitching duel going back and forth, only having a couple hits for each team. And then the next game was a 10-4 slugfest in Waynesburg's favor, and the numbers in the hitting section were in the 10s for both teams. And same thing with John Carroll, but they have just been playing outstanding. 4-game winning streak so far since coming back from the trip that they were on, and they're not turning back. It seems like they've flipped the switch and they're ready to rock and roll.
And we got to see a face that we've been familiar with the past 2 years, but the first time this season, we got to see Sydney Wilson in 3 separate games. She started 2, came in to save another game, so it's good to see her back. Her and Autumn Stemple a perfect 5-0 as pitchers. Now let's move to the baseball side. They had their first action in PAC play against the Geneva College Golden Tornadoes, and then followed that up with a very dreadful doubleheader against the Penn State Barron Lions, Seth.
Yeah, let's get the bad out of the way first, okay? They played Penn State Barron, lost 12-4, and lost 7-2. Didn't have their top guys in the pitching rotation that day, but it is a non-conference game that is to be expected. But let's talk about Geneva and how successful they were. 2-1, having a surprise win. I won't spoil it this time, I promise. And a rematch between pitchers, Ethan Earhart and Conover going against one another, but this time Waynesburg winning it 5-1. I feel like this is a perfect start to the season. You're going in 2-0 in conference. You got St. Vincent, who is at the bottom of the conference right now, coming up this weekend. I say it's still a very solid start, even though Penn State Barron was a little bit rocky.
Yeah, I'm going to say this now while we can. Who knows? Maybe they stay at number 1. Maybe they move down. We got a lot of season to go, but Waynesburg is currently first in the PAC for baseball.
And this is their best start since 2013.
Okay, there we go.
11 years. So
trending in the right direction.
We're going up, and it's going to look like, I feel like it's going to be they're going to prove those polls wrong.
So we'll sit down with Mia Hankins for softball, Spencer for Terry for baseball. Now let's move over to the track and field side of things. Both the men's and women's outdoor teams had their first meet of the season. Seth, just give us a little bit of a rundown about each side.
Yeah, so the men, they placed third, and they had a lot of people have some personal bests and some top 3 finishes in the majority of it. Quentin Weaver set a program record, and it was finished in second place in the 1,500 meter. Just Andrew Casper, we'll get more into that later with Michael McKenzie. But the women also finished in 7th place, and we had a gold finish too, Logan.
We did have a gold finish. I'm not going to spoil it, but just know it relates to Jacket Sports Weekly.
Dun.
We'll let Michael McKenzie give it to you there, but just to wrap things up here on our opening segment, we had the women's lacrosse team. They suffered an 18-8 loss to Muskingum after a big win that they were able to grab early in the season. The freshman, Waverly Lauren, she's got to be the one to highlight.
Waverly Lauren, 3 goals on the day. I mean, they had a win last week, you know. The program is still having a little bit of struggles, but I'm sure it's going to get there eventually. A little bit of a rocky start, but got a win last week. Had an okay game this week. I guess we'll see how it goes.
They're going to have a tough opponent coming up. They will travel to Wells College, a 5-0 women's lacrosse program that averages over 17 goals per game. So we'll see how the ladies fare there. But that's going to do it for our opening segment here on Jacket Sports Weekly. We will open things up with our first analyst, Mia Hankins, to talk about the softball team. Sports information and athletic communication majors here at Waynesburg University take on the responsibilities of the pros. As a sports information athletic communication major, you'll take on tasks such as talking to coaches, public address announcing, tracking and spotting live stats, as well as running those stats to the TV and radio announcers, and keeping the crowd occupied with the live video board. We have alum currently working for the Washington Wild Things, Akron Rubber Ducks, the Miami Dolphins, and numerous Division I programs. So what are you waiting for? Come here and join us at Woo. Back here for our opening segment with our analysts here on Jacket Sports Weekly. And joining Seth and I to talk about the Waynesburg University softball team is Mia Hankins. And Mia, first things first, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Fantastic.
I can't complain.
Can't complain.
Another episode. It's Jacket Sports Weekly. It's a great day to be here, and it's a great week for the Waynesburg University softball team, coming off 4 straight wins, obviously against non-conference opponents. But let's talk about that pitching first, Mia. Specifically, Autumn Stemple and Sydney Wilson. They both looked great in these games.
Autumn Stemple pitched the first game against Carlo. She pitched amazing. We've seen her step in a lot more this season because people like Sydney Wilson, who was Pack Pitcher of the Year, which is a huge role for the softball team. Autumn Stemple had to step in for her this year. Sydney Wilson was hurt in the Florida tournament. So Stemple came in the Carlo game and had 6 strikeouts and 0 walks, which is incredible for someone who comes in for someone like Sydney Wilson, who's done amazing the past 3 seasons here. Sydney Wilson had 3 strikeouts as she relieved Stemple in the first game. And I just think that the pitching is great for Waynesburg softball. As we know, Trinity Edge, a freshman, came in, and she's pitched amazing as well. So we're just seeing a lot of strong pitchers, and I think that's really going to help them maybe win their 3rd PAC championship this year.
And we have that conference game coming up this Saturday against Teal. What can we look forward to in that game? Is it going to be that elite pitching from them, or maybe some of the batters coming into play?
I think it's going to be some of the batters. I mean, obviously, like I said before, we have great pitchers, but we've seen some great batting in the game against John Carroll. We had people like Sydney Waryanka and Trinity Edge, who are both freshmen, hit their first collegiate home runs of the year, which is crazy. And there were 3 runs in that game, in the first John Carroll game, and they all came from either Trinity Edge or Sydney Waryanka, who, like I said before, as freshmen who are stepping up on a team like this is huge for the Waynesburg softball team.
And you talked about that hitting with those 2 individuals, but just overall, the team hit exceptionally well across these 4 games. They had 8 extra base hits, which include 4 doubles, a triple, 3 home runs put together, and they batted above 300 as a team across those 4 teams. So Mia, going now back home, they play Carnegie Mellon on Wednesday, and then they will have their Teal doubleheader. How can they look to keep the bats rolling and support their pitchers that we know can 100% get the job done?
I mean, as we know, the Waynesburg softball team has played great so far this season, and we saw that they're obviously great pitchers, but we're seeing their hitting improve a lot more as each game goes on. The Florida tournament hitting was a little scarce. I mean, they hit well, but it just wasn't as good as we've seen the past couple seasons where they've had these PAC championships. So I think that as long as they just keep practicing, I mean, I know a few girls on the softball team, and I know that they practice really hard, especially with batting. I hear a lot about that. So I think if they just continue that practice and that work ethic, I think that they'll do great in the games against Carnegie Mellon and Teal. They haven't played Carnegie Mellon in a while, but Teal last year, they handled them pretty well, so I think that should be a good game again for them.
And we've had so much success over these last couple of games. Obviously, a 4-game winning streak, it's just exceptional. But, are there any things that you see in this team that maybe they need to work on just a little bit, or something that they're not so strong in that they could improve on?
I think that overall, the team does very well each game in a different part of the game, whether it's pitching, whether it's hitting, whether it's fielding. I think the only thing that they could do better is maybe just be more consistent with all of the aspects of the game altogether. So I mean, if you were to put a game together where there was really good pitching and really great hitting, I mean, the team is already great as it is. Putting those 2 together with a little bit of fielding would make them exceptional on the year. I mean, as they've been exceptional the last 2 years, it would just really put them up on that next level.
So we didn't see Trinity Edge pitch at all in these past 4 games, but do you think that may be due to the fact that she just excels well in the field as well, or could we perhaps see her, when these conference games pick up, see all 3, Sydney Wilson, Autumn Stemple, Trinity Edge, all be in the mix as starting pitchers?
I think we'll see them all be pitchers in some point, but as I know, Trinity Edge is also a third baseman, and she's an exceptional third baseman. We've seen it throughout the year, and we've also seen some of her from high school. Like, whenever you look back at her stats from high school, she was an exceptional third baseman. So I think that her playing in the field could be really good for Waynesburg softball, but I also think that her pitching like she has been with Autumn Semple and Sydney Wilson can really take them to the next level and just get a few more games under their belt, a few more wins under their belt for the Pack.
Well, thank you very much, Mia, for joining us today. But we're going to stick with the diamond and have Spencer Viteri up on the desk right here on JSW.
You're watching WCTV, where we aim to bring you the best local coverage of what you care about most. Everything from local businesses to hometown sports and the latest weather. We're keeping up to date with what you need to know about issues that affect our campus and our community. We're telling the stories that matter, celebrating our past, our future, and our potential. So tune in for all the latest buzz right here on WCTV Channel 14, Waynesburg.
Welcome back to Jacket Sports Weekly. We're going to stick with that diamond, but today we have Spencer Viteri with us to talk about some baseball. So, Spencer, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing good, fellas. How are you guys?
Good, great.
Still can't complain.
I still can't complain either. This shirt is beautiful.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
But regardless, let's get into some action. Baseball, they had their doubleheader against Geneva and Penn State Barron, over the weekend. Give us more of a recap of the Geneva game and more particular, the walk-off win.
Yeah, guys, in the first PAC matchup we see against Geneva, Waynesburg played real well. I know they had a bunch of non-conference games in Florida. You come back, you play a non-conference game against Hilbert, and they're in a good spot. And then the question is, what will they look like against a PAC team? Well, that question for now got answered against Geneva, where they had the walk-off win against Game 1 thanks to the freshman Garrett Comer, who looked exceptional in Florida, and he has continued that now into here. He just won PAC Newcomer of the Week. And again, the pitching looked good. The hitting, it was an all-around great sight to see if you're someone watching for Waynesburg baseball, because Waynesburg softball is the dominant of the two. But right now, Waynesburg baseball looks very good, and with them getting that 2-0 sweep over Geneva, I think there's a lot of things in store.
Yeah, and we talked about the pitching staff for the softball team. I think it needs to be talked about. The two pitchers that got to start against Geneva. You have Dalton Lucy down in Florida, looked exceptional. Here in this game, he puts together 9 complete innings, and Waynesburg comes out with the walk-off win. Then you turn to Game 2, Ethan Earhart. 8 full innings, over 100 pitches, and then Alec Anglemore comes in and closes things out. How important is it that not only Dalton Lucy and Ethan Earhart have found things going, but you have Alec Anglemore who can come in, close games out, and maybe get some other supporting pitchers?
I think a lot of the guys, as we get later into the year, are going to develop in that late game situation. But guys, I think the two main starting pitchers, like you mentioned, Logan, are Dalton Lucy and Ethan Earhart. We call Earhart the ace, but guys, I think Dalton Lucy has taken that title. I think if you're going to name one pitcher who looks the best on that Waynesburg baseball team, it is without a doubt Dalton Lucy. That's no disrespect to Ethan Earhart. He's done great this season. But like you mentioned, Logan, down in Florida, he pitched 2 games, both of those games getting the win. And then that 9-inning pitching spree against Geneva, picking up the win. Again, thanks to Garrett Comer's walk-off win. But still, he's got 24 total strikeouts. He's 4th in the PAC with a 2.17 ERA. And then you add in these guys like Alec Anglemore, who we saw save a game in Waynes and down in Florida. He's pitched down here. And then it's going to come down to guys like Aiden Williams, Garrett Comer, Alex Nicholson. All these young guys, can they come in? And if for some reason Earhart, Lucy, Gavin Pratt, if they can't pitch a full game, can they come in and get the save?
And like you said, some of those young guys are really making an impact for this team. Can you list some of those guys who you think have been really stepping up in that freshman role?
Yeah, so I think the 2 guys are Garrett Comer, who mentioned, and the other one is Trent Giraffa, who's taken a big role of filling in the position of Marcos Mendez at first, who's been injured since last year. We don't know when we see him, and you call in this freshman who has done a phenomenal job at first base and has also been hitting the ball really well. On the pitching side of things, it's going to come down to guys, not necessarily freshmen, maybe even sophomores like Zach Scabelli, Ryan Ofer, Alex Nicholson, who we saw start against Hilbert in Game 2. It's going to be really how this season will go is, can these young freshman starters or even sophomore starters come in and pitch? Because you can't, unfortunately, Dalton Lucy and Ethan Earhart can't pitch every game. So it's going to be, who are those young freshman and sophomore pitchers who can come in and start, maybe not pitch 7 or 9 innings, but can pitch 3 or 4, get you a good point of the way through, and then have someone come in and get the save.
So let's move over from the Geneva doubleheader and let's talk about this Penn State Barron doubleheader. Obviously, it was an ugly one. That's nothing that we can hide here. Look at the scoreboards, look at the box scores. It was not a great outing for the team to come out after 2 straight conference wins. But Spencer, is really that big of a deal? You know, you drop in 2 non-conference games. Does it really impact the team moving forward?
Like I said earlier in the season, Logan, not really, no. I mean, it's, again, you mentioned non-conference, and yeah, well, I'm sure the baseball team would have liked to pick that up. I talked to most of them, and not to, they didn't really, it's not a big deal. Again, it's non-conference, so it doesn't affect your conference record. You're still undefeated in the PAC. And again, it's kind of like when we were in Florida. We talked to some of those guys. They were playing hard for those games, but if they were to drop some of them, they weren't too worried because they're more focused, I think, and what's a key thing about this team is they're focused on PAC wins. I talked to Anglemore and Todd Brenner. They're both already ready for the Saturday game against St. Vincent, which is a PAC game. They're not really worrying, or they're not going to have that loss of the 2 games they played against Penn State Barron loom over their heads. They're already gearing up and getting ready for that doubleheader against St. Vincent.
Yeah, like you said, I 100% agree with you that this game, it might not be as important, but it is an important game to get some of those guys in there who are maybe still trying to figure out where they are on the team, where they are on the squad. Maybe they can get a spot. Maybe they can earn themselves a spot. So game's over with, whatever. But we do have St. Vincent coming up. What can this team do to keep that ball rolling and have some more success as we go on into the season?
Well, you go into this weekend, they have a long break, no games this week, and then you go Saturday, you go to St. Vincent, but St. Vincent is a team who hasn't played any PAC games yet, but guys, they're struggling, 2-9. A lot of those games played down in Florida against some decent teams, but again, this is a team that could be taken advantage of from Waynesburg. They're 2-9, no conference games played yet, and again, Waynesburg coming off that strong win against Geneva in both games, the 2-1 victory in the first game, and then that dominant 5-1 victory. We saw Todd Brenner hit a home run to get the 5th run, but again, you go into St. Vincent, you take care of business, and you take care of a struggling 2-9 St. Vincent PAC team, and you get 2 wins, you're 4-0 in the pack.
Yeah, 4-0 in the pack, great way to start it. But thank you so much, Spencer, for joining us. Don't go anywhere, though. Michael McKenzie's going to be coming up to talk about the new outdoor track and field season coming up.
This is so spice.
Cornucopia.
Try instead of train.
I love this show.
Welcome back to Jacket Sports Weekly. Today we have Michael McKenzie with us to talk about the outdoor track and field season. But first of all, Mike, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great today. It's great to be back on the panel with you guys talking outdoor track and field. First meet of the season, and we get to dive right into it.
Should be exciting times, and also non-related to Waynesburg. I know you're excited for March Madness, so we'll talk a lot about that on our other shows here on WCTV.
We got time for March Madness, but right now it's outdoor track and field.
Outdoor track and field.
Break it open, Seth.
First meet. How did the men do overall to start us off?
So the men did really good, placing a lot of people, 10 top 5 finishers out of the 17 different events there. Here's the list of them in the 100 meter. Isaiah Matthews placed 3rd with an 11.17 seconds time. In the 110 meter hurdles, Tyleek Williams placed 5th at 16.10 seconds. In the 800 meter, Quentin Weaver placed 3rd at 1 minute 58 seconds and 69/10 of a second. Quentin Weaver, we'll get into it in a little bit, but he's going to be the name to watch in the outdoor track and field season. Another reason he's the name to watch is he set the school record in the 1500 meter at 4 minutes and 7 seconds even. He placed 2nd in the event, but again, school record, another record to Quentin Weaver's name. In the 3000 meter steeple, Matthew Shank placed 5th with a 5 minute 37 second time. It was a personal record, a PR for Matthew Shank, one of 2 people, or 3 people I should say, that had personal records. But for Shank and for John Stewart in the discus throw, John Stewart placed 5th with a 40.55 meter throw. That was a PR for him. And then obviously Weaver setting the school record. That was a PR as well. Back to some of the placers though. The 5,000 meter, Andrew Casper placed 2nd at 15 minutes and 44 seconds and change. Discus throw, Jacob Harker also placed in that event for Waynesburg at 4th with a 40.57 meter throw. High jump, Kai Herbert, 4th place with a 1.75 meter jump. And in the shot put, Jacob Harker placed 5th with a 14.17 meter throw. He's 3 centimeters though from breaking the school record, which was 14.39. So that's going to change here soon, and it's going to be thanks to Jacob Harker. But again, a lot of placements, a lot of top 5 finishes for Waynesburg, 10 different top 5 finishes across the 17 different events in a 20-team meet at the Bethany Invitational. Great start to the outdoor season for the men.
Well, I'm going to give you a little bit of a break from talking there, Mike. You sound like an auctioneer there a little bit, listing off all the guys that were able to place in the top 5 in their respective events. But we'll transition over to the women's side of things in terms of best finishes. Seth and I alluded to it on our opening segment. There's one specific result that is very close to our show. And, Mike, I'll let you go ahead and share with the people what that is.
Out of the men and the women, only one Waynesburg athlete at the Bethany Invitational placed first, and it was Meg Berry at the javelin throw with a 34.89 meter throw. Obviously the producer of the show, so shout out Meg Berry finishing first in the javelin throw. Not the only Waynesburg athlete to place in the javelin throw either. Peyton Coons came in 5th with a 30.52 meter throw, and then 3 other events where a Waynesburg athlete placed in the women's side of things. In the 3,000 meter steeple, Reagan Pettis finished 4th with a 13-minute 2-second time, 13-minute 2-second time. And then pole vault, Kara Yuki finished 3rd with a 2.8 meter jump. And then in the triple jump, Ella Rochelle placed 4th with a 9.91 meter combined length of jump for Rochelle. So that's 5 top 5 finishes among the 15 different events for the women. Not necessarily as much as the men, but in 15 different events, 5 top 5 finishers, along with the first place finish with Meg Berry at the javelin throw. It's still a very solid day overall for the women at their first meet of the season at the Bethany Invitational.
You got a lot of names there. A lot of names.
It's great to be able to cover and talk about a team that's got so many people that you get to place and talk about and just list off like this.
So let's jar up a few and let's shake them up. Let's name some key athletes, Mike, who you think have really made an impact on this meet and in general. We'll throw them to you.
Well, thank you for that, Seth. I appreciate it. But you obviously got to start with the first place finish in Meg Berry in the javelin throw. First meet of the season, she finishes first place in the entire event. That's a great accomplishment for Meg. Now, going into their next meet at WVU, we'll get into that in a little bit, but there's going to be a few more teams. Not quite sure if we're going to get another first place finish for any of the Waynesburg athletes, but it's great to have that to kick off the outdoor season. Then obviously Quentin Weaver broke multiple records at the indoor track and field season, already broke a school record at the outdoor track and field first meet. So let's see if he can break a few more records, if he can get his name into the Waynesburg track and field history book a few more times. And then I'm looking at Jacob Harker. Obviously he's 3 centimeters away from breaking the school record in the shot put. He's going to be a name to watch the entire season, not only with that record, but potentially with other records like the discus throw, an event he just placed 4th at Bethany.
So, Mike, you talked a little bit about who to expect, who's already done well. Now, let's take a little bit of a leap forward and look at the next meet that Waynesburg will have. They will head to West Virginia University for the Stan Ramanovsky Open, over obviously at WVU, as I just alluded to. We saw the names that did well at this past meet, the first meet of the season. Can we see any more potentially jump up onto this list? Obviously, it was the first meet of the outdoor season and a big transition from indoor to outdoor. Who could we potentially see maybe move up, or what can we just expect overall, as this is what we've heard, a much bigger meet than what we saw at Bethany?
Yeah, obviously it's going to be a much bigger meet, a lot more Division II and even potentially Division I teams going to be at this meet, WVU. I think that unfortunately the expectations may be a little lower, maybe a few less people or athletes placing for Waynesburg with more teams and more competitors, but more events potentially in this next meet at WVU, so maybe there's more chances for extra athletes to place. But I think overall, with more teams, more competitors in all the different events at a bigger meet at WVU, I'm not quite sure if Waynesburg is going to get the same results of 5 top 5 finishers for the women or 10 top 5 finishers for the men across the different events. But I still expect some of the people like we just mentioned, Meg Berry, Quentin Weaver, Jacob Harker, or even potentially Tyleek Williams and Kai Herbert on the men's side of things, and potentially Ella Rochelle and Peyton Coons on the women's side of things. They could still place, and placing in this next event is going to be a little more noteworthy and going to mean a little more with the higher volume of athletes competing at this meet at WVU.
Well, Michael McKenzie, it's been a pleasure having you up here on the desk. A lot to talk about. We'll see you next week for our next episode of Jacket Sports Weekly. But that is going to wrap things up. The outdoor track and field teams, very young start to the season. We'll see how they progress as it goes along. But that's going to do it from all of us here at Jacket Sports Weekly. Logan Episcopo, Seth Adams, Michael McKenzie just joining us. Mia Hankins, Spencer Ferteri, and everybody behind the scenes. Thank you for watching, and have a good night.
This has been a production of Waynesburg Community Television.